Police say the safest place to meet is outside a police station, where there are security cameras and where help is just a few feet away. The father-in-law involved in all of this is now out of surgery. He is listed in critical but stable condition. They wanted me to make sure to get this message out here that when you see orange cones like this, when you see this yellow tape on roads, please don't try to drive around it. The attorney for the Hambrick family will talk about that $30 million lawsuit. There's a new website that allows people to adopt storm drains. They're also expanding by air, adding a third helipad by the end of the year. A severe thunderstorm rolled through the area about an hour and a half ago, and it did this. The trunk hit so hard, it's now in the back seat. The second car has minor damage, but it's the impact that officers say they won't forget. Wyatt says along with isolation and criticism, there are other red flags. 5 people are now dead. The district attorney tells us that it's a mother and 4 children. 80% of cars that were stolen were easy targets because the keys were left inside. The biggest red flag about a scam like this is that they ask you to send them money.
She felt it. She felt like, this is uncomfortable, this isn't right, I shouldn't be doing this.
Daniel Holmes Fountain says his 13-year-old sister was quiet and seemed uncomfortable when she came home from school Wednesday.
I kind of just had like this issue with my homework, like my assignment.
She's an 8th grader at Sunset Middle School in Brentwood and got this assignment, asking students to pretend they own slaves.
Your family owns slaves. Create a list of expectations for your family slaves.
Holmes Fountain was shocked.
I was angry at first, and then in general just kind of hurt and disappointed. We didn't see the academic merit in something like that.
The superintendent of Williamson County Schools tweeted this apology, saying the assignment was insensitive and reflects poorly on our school community and doesn't reflect our district's commitment to treat all students with dignity and respect. Holmes Fountain posted the assignment on social media and got lots of calls from other upset parents at the school.
This isn't right. Like, we don't feel comfortable about this assignment for our child.
He says while it's important for students to learn American history, words matter.
You have a responsibility to be careful about how you present this information to very impressionable people.
And Superintendent Dr. Mike Looney says that staff members have been getting training on cultural awareness and says the school district still has a lot more work to do in that area.
I have cried, I've been nervous.
Sheila Clemens Lee was filled with emotion.
I got fidgety and and everything, and my heart was pounding.
Moments after finding out Metro Officer Andrew Delkey had been charged with criminal homicide in the shooting death of Daniel Hambrick.
Through Daniel, we all get a piece of justice.
Justice Clemens Lee says she never got for her own son, Jacquees Clemens.
Jacquees was loving, very fun to be around.
The 31-year-old was shot and killed last year while running away from Metro Officer Joshua Lippert. Police say Clemens had a gun. The officer wasn't charged, leading to protests and community outrage.
I was very devastated, and I was angry and mad.
Clemens Lee turned that anger into activism.
We're going to different functions, churches, hitting the streets.
She organized sit-ins outside East Precinct and collected signatures for a Citizens Community Oversight Board to look into police misconduct.
I couldn't help Jacquees, but if I could help the next family that traveled this road, then it was all worthwhile. And my son's death is not in vain.
2 untimely deaths.
2 young men that didn't deserve to die.
That have now bonded the grieving mothers.
Sometimes I call her, sometimes she calls me. We encourage each other.
Clemens Lee says the charges are a step towards justice, but far from the end of the work that still needs to be done.
We all are working together to make true change here in Nashville.
And Clemens Lee says getting a community oversight board passed in Nashville is the next step in preventing shootings like this from happening. The issue will be placed before voters on November 6th. The FOP tried to have the referendum removed, but was dismissed twice. I spoke with Joseph Netherton, who says the family still wants an arrest. He says October 23rd is a tough day for him. He says he has nightmares and relives the trauma he felt after his brother's brutal murder.
He was everything to me. He was my best friend. I loved him, and I miss him.
every year on the anniversary of his brother's death.
All the thoughts run through my head. I can't sleep.
Joseph Netherton has painful flashbacks.
And he was on a gurney with a bandage wrapped around his head and blood still coming through the bandage, dripping on the floor.
October 23rd, 1993, his 18-year-old brother Robert and friend 15-year-old James Upchurch were shot and killed while driving near Brentwood. Robert was shot 3 times in the back of his head.
And I just grabbed him and shook him, and I begged him to wake up, open his eyes. He was lifeless.
25 years later,
I am very frustrated. My whole family is.
the case still hasn't been solved.
For 25 years, we've been waiting every day. My mother calls and calls and calls, and she won't give up.
Police believe the shooter was in the car with them, but don't know why it happened. Netherton says about 20 detectives have handled the case, but says not enough is being done. Do you think you'll ever see justice?
I don't believe so. I don't believe they're putting the effort in.
Metro Police say the case is open and active. Decades later, the family still pores over old news clips, hoping someone with information can break the case.
If there is, I wish they would come forward.
Netherton says even if they finally get justice, it will never bring his brother back.
There still is no closure, ever, and there never will be.
As you can imagine, this has been a very difficult week for the family. Christian is still here at Vandy in ICU, but even so, the family says they remain hopeful.
We're trusting God, and we're trusting God for a miracle.
A full recovery.
Each day is a battle, but Christian, he's a strong young man.
That's what Stacy and Derek Abercrombie are praying for as their son Christian remains in critical condition at Vanderbilt.
Christian is fighting, so therefore, as a family, we're fighting. We're supporting him. We're standing strong in our faith.
Stacy remembers cheering her son on at Saturday's game.
I saw him bouncing to the music. I saw him excited. He was glad to be there.
Not knowing that soon after, Christian, a linebacker with TSU, would suffer a head injury and collapse. Doctors aren't saying what he's been diagnosed with.
I think it's a day-by-day situation.
Meanwhile, the couple has been praying nonstop, encouraged every time Christian makes even the slightest movement.
And he was listening to different music, and he responded with raising his hand, trying to raise his hand. And he would rub my nails as he heard different songs.
Small signs of hope.
We're still grateful for those baby steps.
The family says is their way of knowing Christian isn't giving up.
He's fighting, and we see his fight.
And along with their faith, the family says community support has also helped them get through this difficult time. In Nashville, Kim Wynne, News 2. 2 people were trapped inside their car in the middle of this creek. The water rushing so high that it covered the tires. The men are now safe, and their car has been dragged out, all for a situation officials say could have been avoided.
If you don't have to be out, stay at home.
Chief Mark Blackwood is sending a strong message to drivers after crews were called to this.
There are signs out.
Two men stranded after their car got stuck and started flooding on Flat Creek near Columbia.
He was in a vehicle in the creek and his car was floating.
Rescue crews got the call around 5:15. Our cameras following close behind as they raced to the scene.
The danger is, of course, being swept off of this small bridge, being into the creek where they certainly could have drowned.
The men are now safe, but Blackwood says it's the perfect example of what they tell drivers not to do.
Extremely frustrating to us that they ignored the high water signs, did exactly what we've been warning people not to do for the last several days, drove around the high water signs, drove across an area that they certainly could not see the bottom of. It's needless, it shouldn't happen. They should have turned around and went another direction.
And the driver of this car will get a ticket for ignoring the traffic signs on both ends of the street that say high water. In Murray County, Kim Wynne, News 2.